नमस्ते। आज मेरे साथ डॉक्टर जयप्रकाश नारायण हैं। और जब इनका नाम आया डॉक्टर जेपी, तो मेरे ऑफिस के भी सबको लगा कि क्योंकि जेपी इज अ वर्ड, जयप्रकाश नारायण इज अ वर्ड जो एक एक एवरेज हिंदुस्तानी को आंदोलित करता है। एक एवरेज हिंदुस्तानी में वो आशा जगाता है कि कहीं ना कहीं देयर इज स्टिल अ होप। जेपी उस होप को कितना पूरा कर पाए वो एक अलग बात है, लेकिन देयर इज अ होप। तो डॉक्टर साहब, जब आज हम आपसे बात कर रहे हैं तो हम इस प्रेमाइसिस के साथ बात कर रहे हैं कि देयर इज अ होप। डॉक्टर साहब का मैं परिचय आप लोगों को करा दूं। डॉक्टर साहब फिजिशियन बाय क्वालिफिकेशन, पब्लिक सर्वेंट बाय चॉइस, एंड ही सेज डेमोक्रेट बाय कन्विक्शन। आप एक सोशल मूवमेंट चलाते हैं, पॉलिटिकल पॉलिटिक्स में रहे, एक्टिव पॉलिटिक्स में रहे, लेकिन अब मोर ऑफ अ रिफॉर्म वाले उसमें हैं। लोगों को समझाएं, लोगों तक अपनी बात पहुंचाएं, क्या चीज अच्छी है डेमोक्रेसी के लिए, क्या खराब है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्या है, इत्यादि इत्यादि। डॉक्टर साहब, मैं सबसे पहले इसलिए क्योंकि जब आज आज तेलंगाना की वजह से सारा देश कह रहा है कि इलेक्शन है, इलेक्शन है, लेकिन मैं एक इस चर्चा को थोड़ा आपसे समझने के तौर पे, क्योंकि आंध्र प्रदेश को लोगों को कम पता है कि आंध्र प्रदेश ने देश के किसी भी हिस्से से ज्यादा, जब बंटवारा हुआ 1947 के पार्टीशन के बाद, वहां पे भी बहुत खून बहा है। और लोगों को ये लगता है कि खून केवल कश्मीर और पंजाब और बंगाल में बहा। आंध्र प्रदेश ने भी बहुत खून दिया है इस देश के स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन में। आप एक बड़ा आंदोलन चला, फिर 1953 में मद्रास प्रेसिडेंसी से निकल के कुछ जो तेलुगु स्पीकिंग हिस्सा था वो आंध्र प्रदेश हुआ। और फिर बॉम्बे प्रेसिडेंसी कह लिया, उस समय की बॉम्बे सरकार कह लीजिए, उससे निकल के जो तेलुगु स्पीकिंग था वो 56 में एक साथ हुआ और एक यूनाइटेड आंध्र प्रदेश फॉर्म हुआ। मैं डॉक्टर साहब इसलिए आपसे करूंगा कि जब ये बात आती है तो हैदराबाद स्टेट जो एक मुस्लिम रूलर द्वारा चलाई जाती थी, वहां से ये कहानी शुरू होती है। थोड़ा मुझे आंध्र प्रदेश और तेलंगाना का बैकग्राउंड, और फिर आप यूनाइटेड होने के बाद फिर सेपरेट क्यों हुए, मैं कारण पे नहीं, लेकिन सेपरेट होने से क्या विकास तेज हो रहा है या डेवलपमेंट फास्ट हो रहा है, एक ओवरऑल पिक्चर ऑफ दैट।
Anandji, thank you for having me. Now, just as an aside, this name JayaPrakash Narayan, many people do confuse that I probably am from Bihar. I remember at the time urging the Prime Minister and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi to encourage and to help Bihar after Nitish Kumar came to power as Chief Minister. I said, look, Bihar is a very difficult state in all kinds of problems. And here is a good chief minister who seems to be willing to do something. Forget political differences, please support. People thought that I was a Bihari and therefore I was being very partisan. I had to tell them I am from Andhra Pradesh, I have nothing to do with Bihar. Then I said, why? They said, why are you worried about Bihar? I told them, if Bihar dies, India dies. If UP dies, India dies. If you don't understand that, there's an integral link, and large states of India cannot be allowed to go back relative to the rest of India. The nation will pay a price. I strongly believe that. As far as AP is concerned, we were in a way, the progenitors of the linguistic reorganization of states, while Congress movement during freedom struggle actually decided to go for linguistic reorganization. That did not happen immediately. Telugu people were impatient. They wanted their own state. And one intrepid young man, Potti Sriramulu, he went on a fast unto death and he actually died. And that led to a lot of agitation and anger and some amount of violence. Then, they created committee after committee. The first committee was Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, Pattabhi Sitharamaya. Another committee was appointed, Fazlul Ali's commission. Finally, linguistic reorganization of states happened. So 53, the Madras presidency, British India's Telugu-speaking people, the present-day Andhra Pradesh, that is coastal Andhra and what we call Rayalaseema, these two sub-regions, they became Andhra state. 56, that was integrated with the liberated, Nizam's liberated domain, the Telugu-speaking region, the Telangana as we call it today. This became an integrated Andhra Pradesh. The other parts, as you said, one part went to the Bombay presidency, which is now Maharashtra state, Marathwada area. The other part went to Hyderabad, Karnataka, the present-day Karnataka, Kannada-speaking areas. As you probably know, at that time, the Hyderabad state, Nizam state, was India's largest princely state. 1.6 crore population, about 5% of India's population at that time, about 4.5-5% of the population, and a very vast area. And as we all know, the remarkable feat of India's integration by Sardar Patel and his colleagues, without shedding blood. Only in Hyderabad state, actually armed forces are used, and even there only 6 to 10 people died from the armed forces. There was, of course, violence from the extremists, the communists, and the religious fundamentalists. In that, a significant number of losses took place. But the actual liberation of Hyderabad happened relatively peacefully, though the guns were fired. And I think it's a remarkable experience in the country. No other country saw such phenomenal integration with so little effort and without any bloodshed. I think it's a genius of our freedom fighters and the first generation leadership. Now, the reason why there was some amount of, I wouldn't say discord, but some amount of a distance between the Telangana region and the coastal Andhra Rayalaseema is the first education, the modern education from British India went to coastal Andhra and Rayalaseema regions, the Madras Presidency regions. Whereas the first education went to Telangana, particularly rural areas, much later, a generation later. A lot of efforts were made, but they didn't have the benefit of early schooling except some of the Jagirdars and better off populations. And that too in Urdu and English medium. There was no Telugu at that time. Urdu was actually the medium of instruction at that time. And because of that, and there was a certain amount of a gulf. In independent India, when the opportunities came, naturally the people who got slightly better educational opportunities, they tended to forge ahead. So that was the first thing. The second is between British India, with the Raitwari system in the south, therefore the farmer tenants had the property ownership rights. And therefore the progressive approach and social reform movements, social justice movements of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh at that time, Andhra area at that time, and the anti-caste movements and rationalist movements, they all had strong roots in those pockets. Telangana did not see yet. So there is some amount of gap because of the peculiar nature of history. Otherwise, in terms of economic management, no, whatever be our failings, we have done a pretty good job as a country in terms of the federal management, the fiscal relationships. We have a formula. No formula is perfect, but always, right from the first Finance Commission of India, the state's share of allocation from the union was determined by a formula which is reasonable and fair. And that's true with Telangana and Andhra regions also. And within the regions, as you know, you have been in party politics, you understand politics very well. A district is a unit of politics in a state. And each district fights very strongly for its own share on the basis of the population, backwardness, the local needs, and so on and so forth. So there is no way you can actually discriminate. Yes, depending on powerful politicians locally, sometimes they may get a little extra. But beyond that, you don't really fudge the formula. So there was no economic disparity on account of Telangana, Andhra, no discrimination. But there was a certain amount of cultural gap, a certain amount of feeling that the language of the kind spoken in the coastal Andhra Rayalaseema was the dominant one in films and in newspapers, what we call Sishta Vyavaharika. So it's these small cultural factors and very bad political management, not economic management, political management. If the leaders of Andhra region, the today's Andhra Pradesh, who constituted a majority of Telugu people, if they had a slightly greater sense of unity of purpose and largeness of heart and made some efforts to integrate, things would have been good. As long as NTR was alive, it was absolutely wonderful because he genuinely believed in the unity of all the three sub-regions of Andhra Pradesh. And there was not even a murmur of any kind of a regional disparity or regional aspirations. But after his passing, I think successive leaders, as earlier leaders, they failed. And there were some constitutional instruments available which were done away with foolishly in 1970s when there were agitations in both regions. And therefore, those instruments could have been very valuable. They did not work. And finally, because of a lot of bungling, a lot of bad politics, and genuine aspirations of Telangana people, the state was created. And you know how it was created. Unlike other state formation, linguistic reorganization ensured that everything is according to principle and universal acceptance in the country that each language will have a state. Post that, the separation of a state or division of a state in Madhya Pradesh or Bihar or UP, it happened by consent of the legislature. Parties came together. Andhra Pradesh is the lone exception where the legislature rejected it, and the parliament simply, by a diktat, passed it under questionable circumstances. Therefore, there's some amount of bad blood on account of that. But all that ends well is well, because luckily that did not have any serious consequences, largely because the people of Telangana did not reward Congress party for division of the state. They rewarded the regional party which fought for the division of the state. If Congress party was rewarded, my own sense is in the rest of India, the major political parties would have played this game of brinkmanship and division of the state, and probably federalism would have been under threat. And therefore, this threat was thwarted for the country by the political judgment of Telangana people.
ओके ओके डॉक्टर साहब, मैं एक दो चीजें और आपसे पूछ लूं, क्योंकि तेलंगाना की जब हिस्ट्री देखते हैं तो मैं दो लोगों का नाम ऐसे ही लूं। एक ऐसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरसिम्हा राव साहब बने, देश को उन्होंने एक नया दिशा दिया। वो अब हो सकता है कुछ सोशलिस्ट दोस्त हमारे जो मित्र हैं उनको लगे कि नहीं नहीं वर्ल्ड बैंक नहीं, लेकिन दुनिया वैसे जा रही थी। तो मनमोहन सिंह को उसकी क्रेडिट दी जाती है, बट इट वाज हिज लीडरशिप जिसने उस समय की वो करके वो एक निर्णय लिया। और मैं दर्शकों को ये बता दूं कि नरसिम्हा राव साहब को 1984 में जब 400 से ज्यादा सीटें कांग्रेस की आई थी, तो आंध्र प्रदेश में वो अपनी सीट हार गए थे। वो 2 सीटें बीजेपी जीती थी, जिसमें से एक आंध्र प्रदेश थी और एक गुजरात में थी, एंड नरसिम्हा राव साहब लॉस्ट देम। मैं इसलिए आपसे कह रहा हूं ये बात कि आपके यहाँ के एक गवर्नर साहब थे, उनको पॉलिटिकली हो सकता है आपकी मतलब वहां पे वो हो। चन्ना रेड्डी हमारे उत्तर प्रदेश में आए थे, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट एक्टिव गवर्नर्स वी हैड, एंड वी डोंट रिमेंबर हिम एज धनखड़ साहब, वी रिमेंबर हिम बिकॉज ही कंट्रीब्यूटेड। उन्होंने इस उत्तर प्रदेश में बहुत सी चीजों के लिए एक्टिव थे, सब जगह जाते थे, मिलते थे लोगों से, लोगों के दुख दर्द को सुनते थे। उनका जो पॉलिटिक्स आंध्र प्रदेश की थी, मैं उस पर कमेंट नहीं अभी कर रहा हूं। आज समहाउ आंध्र प्रदेश और तेलंगाना दोनों ने अपने उस रोल को आज नहीं है। जगन रेड्डी इज ओनली रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू हिज ओन आंध्र प्रदेश, उसके बाहर वो शायद उनका कोई फुट स्टेप नहीं है। अपने चंद्रशेखर राव साहब कोशिश करते हैं, बट समहाउ ही इज आल्सो रिस्ट्रिक्टेड टू तेलंगाना। मैं थोड़ा एक लार्जर जो आपका रोल था और जो देश के लिए जरूरी था, उसमें कहीं ना कहीं कमी आई है। मैं थोड़ा इस पे भी एक, क्योंकि आपने साइबराबाद बनाया, आप लोगों ने इस देश को एक बहुत मतलब लोगों को लगता है कि सारा कुछ बॉम्बे से हुआ या दिल्ली से हुआ, हैदराबाद बैंगलोर से हुआ, लेकिन हैदराबाद प्लेड अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल जिस समय इंडिया को इम्पेटस चाहिए था। मैं थोड़ा उस पे भी आपको वेयर कहां पे रास्ता भूल गए या भटक गए या क्या हुआ?
Two people did play a significant role in national politics. N.T. Ramarao, because of his stature and personality. At one stage, as you said rightly, even Mr. Jangareddy from BJP against Narasimha Rao, he won with NTR's support. Without NTR's alliance, there was no chance at all. It was because he gave them the seats at that time. And at that time, if you remember Rajiv Gandhi's time after Indira Gandhi's assassination, 35 seats were held by TDP. And there was no party, as you said rightly, BJP had 2 seats. So while there was no official opposition because there was no 10% of the strength of Lok Sabha, the de facto opposition was the Telugu Desam party, regional party. So NTR, because of his personality and charisma, he held the whole opposition together, gave them confidence, and in many ways, he paved the way for the unity of opposition and therefore emergence of a national alternative to Congress party in the country. And while Chandrababu Naidu did not have that kind of a national stature, he utilized the opportunity available when the National Front came into being after NTR's demise. And later in Vajpayee government, when he supported from outside, he played a skillful role because he also had in Vajpayee government 35 seats, along with him and his allies, 35 seats they had in parliament. And wisely, he did not take position in the cabinet, therefore he did not seek a political cake. He only sought something good for his state and did whatever he could from the country's point of view. Therefore, both did play some significant role. And of course, Narasimha Rao ji, we all know his contribution. I had the privilege of knowing both Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Bari Reddy until the end of their lives. Particularly after Mr. Narasimha Rao demitted the Prime Minister's office, I knew him very closely. I met him actually even a couple of weeks before his passing at his request in Delhi. Dr. Reddy, I knew him fairly well as Chief Minister and later as Governor Tamil Nadu, etc. Dr. Reddy was an extraordinary politician. I think an underrated politician, or also misunderstood politician. Dr. Reddy would not suffer fools gladly. Unlike Mr. Narasimha Rao, who was very, very generous, very soft-spoken. and would not antagonize people or confront them. Dr. Channa Reddy was never afraid of confronting people or antagonizing them, and he would not suffer fools gladly. And both times he came to power in Andhra Pradesh, Congress lost power in Delhi. Once in 1978, Indira Gandhi lost power. Out of desperation, they asked him to head the party, and then he became chief minister. Quite unexpected. Nobody expected that. When Janta was in power, everybody thought Mr. Vendal Rao, he would win power. And 1989, again, Rajiv Gandhi lost power, and Dr. Channa Reddy was the chief minister here. And both times he was not the favorite of the High Command because he was too independent, too strong, too self-willed. They made him chief minister out of compulsion because they were out of power in Delhi. They had no choice. At the first available opportunity, they threw him out. They Congress, the way it operates, manufactured dissidents, and they got him thrown out. And he also antagonized people because he was too strong and too capable and would not suffer, as I said, fools very gladly. But I think your point is very right. He was one of the smartest politicians, very thoughtful, very intelligent, very far-sighted, and a man underrated outside of his state. But time passes and people sometimes forget the contribution made by exceptional people in the past. And some people get an opportunity like P.V. Narasimha Rao had. He was actually packing up everything to come back to Delhi, little knowing that Rajiv Gandhi would be brutally assassinated, and he was the only consensus candidate available, and he served the country loyally and well. We feel very proud of him. So I suppose sometimes fate plays a role, sometimes the political contest plays a role.
जी डॉक्टर साहब, मैं अपने दर्शकों को भी एक चीज बता दूं कि जब 1989 में नेशनल फ्रंट बना और जिसको वीपी सिंह की वजह से लोग याद रखते हैं, उसके चेयरमैन एनटी रामाराव साहब थे और उन्होंने ही उसको स्टिच किया था उस फॉर्मेशन को। और वो बहुत मुश्किल स्टिच था क्योंकि एक तरफ वो बीजेपी को भी स्टिच करना था, एक तरफ कम्युनिस्ट को भी करना था। ये हिंदुस्तानी पॉलिटिक्स में बहुत आसान चीज नहीं थी। लेकिन उसी तरह की अपॉर्चुनिटी चंद्रबाबू नायडू साहब एनडीए के कन्वीनर बने, बट नो वन रिमेंबर्स हिम कि वो एनडीए के कभी कन्वीनर भी थे। या तो उस समय तक मोदी जी आ चुके थे, तो मोदी जी अपने सामने तो किसी को कोई कन्वीनर हो कुछ हो, इट इज ओनली मोदी जी हु रूल्स। मैं अब जरा तेलंगाना पे आपकी एक बात कर लूं, क्योंकि नेक्स्ट एपिसोड में हम लोग थोड़ा आंध्र प्रदेश की पॉलिटिक्स की बात करेंगे। वहां का इलेक्शन अभी 7-8 महीने दूर है। तेलंगाना का इलेक्शन इज ड्यू, और पिछली बार तेलंगाना ने ओवरवेलमिंगली चंद्रशेखर राव साहब को सपोर्ट किया था। अभी एक इंप्रेशन यह है कि चंद्रशेखर राव साहब इज अंडर, उनके ऊपर थोड़ा प्रेशर है बिकॉज ऑफ ईडी एंड सीबीआई। उनकी लड़की को डायरेक्टली समन भेजा जाता है, और जब वो कांग्रेस को थोड़ा अक्यूज करने लगते हैं तो समन रोक लिया जाता है, और ये बहुत ब्लेटेंटली हो रहा है, सब लोग देख रहे हैं, एवरीवन नोज अबाउट इट। आपको क्या लगता है कि आफ्टर इलेक्शंस whatever वेट, वो बीआरएस जीत जाती है, बीआरएस नहीं जीतती है, कांग्रेस जीत जाती है, जो भी होता है, क्या देयर इज अ रिमोट पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ Chandrasekhar Rao Sahab joining the opposition India alliance?
I really don't know. I can't answer that question because Mr. Chandrasekhar Rao is very unpredictable, if anything. And he's also extremely shrewd. And he doesn't have any permanent alliances or enmity. Whatever he thinks is right for his state or his party, he will do at that point of time. And therefore, sometimes he made diametrically opposite stances. Whatever he said at one point, he may change it tomorrow depending on the context. So it's impossible to really know what exactly he's going to do. But we must also say that Telangana did try to balance both the short-term individual welfare measures, delivered like many state governments and chief ministers to deliver them very effectively, and the economic growth impulse, infrastructure, investment in Hyderabad city and surrounding. We were privileged that both Mr. Chandrababu Naidu and later Dr. Rajsekhar Reddy and Congress party, they did a very good job building up Hyderabad infrastructure. Hyderabad is next only to Delhi today in infrastructure and quality of life, probably even better than Delhi in some respects.
Yes.
Inviting a lot of investment, and luckily we have a very cosmopolitan atmosphere where north and south fuse. This is a city where actually you understand, you can speak more in Urdu than in Telugu. You'll be comfortable with Hindustani Urdu. So irrespective of where you are from, this city doesn't really question that. So those advantages exist. And he took advantage of that and they built on that. The TRS, BRS party, they built on that infrastructure, they continued those policies. But two things happened. The state started with India's largest surplus. The 14th Finance Commission estimated a surplus of 1,16,000 crores revenue in Telangana in 5 years, the highest surplus in the country. Because no, Hyderabad is a money spinner. It's a revenue spinning city. And once Hyderabad is taken over by one small part of Telugu state, 8 crore population became 3 and 5, or 8.5 became 3.5 and 5 something. So obviously, the Hyderabad surplus is now taken up by one small state instead of being shared by the larger state. So Telangana got that benefit. And that came in handy. And they certainly made a good effort in terms of building infrastructure and encouraging investment. But one thing that happened is excessive vanity projects, very high cost infrastructure projects, some of them unviable. They were built and therefore they also landed themselves in some kind of a fiscal problem. It will not be a long term serious problem because Telangana has the advantage of Hyderabad, but there is a needless problem. The second difficulty is, like with any party in the country, once you are in power for some years, there will be allegations of corruption, family rule, dynastic politics, and in Hyderabad, somehow many people with the old memories, they're obsessed with the Nizam. So governing like the Nizam did, not like a modern democratic government does. So unapproachable, not even meeting the cabinet minister. Some of these complaints are there. But in terms of overall governance, I think Telangana people are reasonably happy and they're respected because I think the interests of many uh, groups are protected and taken care of, and very competent delivery of the individual social welfare schemes, and reasonably competent effort to improve the economic growth prospects of the state. But there's going to be some amount of anti-establishment wave, and the opposition is going to be split between two parties. Earlier, it appeared that BJP was gaining some ascendancy, but because of their own perhaps ineptitude or failings, it appears that they have not been able to take advantage of that. Now, Congress, uh, after Karnataka, and with Congress intense effort now to go in for short-term welfare measures at any cost, seems to be gaining some ascendancy. But my own sense is twofold. One, North Telangana Congress is relatively weak. South Telangana BJP is relatively weak. Therefore, opposition vote will be split sufficiently for TRS, BRS to emerge probably as winner. But there will be a stronger opposition than before. Earlier, there was no opposition. Such opposition that existed also was taken over by absorption because all these
Yes.
people simply jumped ship immediately after the election. Now, I think there will be a strong opposition no matter who wins. And I think that's a good thing for the state.
मैं लास्ट में कंक्लूड करने से पहले मैं दर्शकों को एक चीज बता दूं, तेलंगाना एक ऐसी स्टेट है जहां पे 74% वोटर्स टर्न आउट लास्ट असेंबली इलेक्शन में, 74%, विच इज वेरी हाई। हम लोगों को क्या नहीं होता है हिंदी हार्टलैंड में। वहां का एजुकेशन हम लोगों से बहुत ज्यादा है, दे आर मोर अवेयर। और मैं डॉक्टर साहब, मैं चलते चलते लास्ट क्वेश्चन इज, देयर इज अ खड़गे फैक्टर ऑल्सो। एक राहुल गांधी फैक्टर इंपॉर्टेंट है कांग्रेस के लिए, देयर इज अ खड़गे फैक्टर ऑल्सो। एंड कुछ लोगों को कम पता होगा, खड़गे जी का ओरिजिन भी हैदराबाद है, और वो हैदराबाद में ही सफर्ड, जो भी निजाम का उस समय था, उन्होंने उस दंश को झेला है, उस दर्द को उन्होंने स्वयं उनके साथ हुआ है, उनके परिवार में। और फिर वो नॉर्थ कर्नाटका में ज्यादा उनका प्रभाव है, और शायद उसकी वजह से जो डॉक्टर साहब आप कह रहे हैं कि जो साउथ तेलंगाना है, उसका थोड़ा इफेक्ट कांग्रेस डोमिनेटेड रहता है। क्या खड़गे इज ऑल्सो, वो कम से कम यूपी में खड़गे साहब हैज बिकम अ फैक्टर बिकॉज ऑफ हिज एक तो बहुत सीनियर हैं, दूसरा वो जिस बैकग्राउंड से आते हैं उनके ऊपर कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं कर सकता है, और वो एग्रेसिवली इस समय परस्यू कर रहे हैं। तो क्या खड़गे साहब इज ऑल्सो अ फैक्टर इन, अदर देन राहुल गांधी? राहुल गांधी तो एक फैक्टर हो गए हैं, बट खड़गे साहब इज ऑल्सो अ फैक्टर?
No, not much of a factor in this part of the country. First of all, let's remember that the election is separate. Earlier, Telangana used to have election along with the Lok Sabha. 2018, the election is advanced. My own observation is, at least in these parts of the country, in the southern parts of the country and maybe western parts of the country, the state is the unit of politics. It is not Lok Sabha election that is dominant in the people's minds. That is all in the media and the newspapers and English-speaking people. For the people, generally, politics is state-driven and assembly constituency-driven. and their vote for the national election is generally dependent on what they do, what they think about the state level governing party. If they're in favor of the state governing party, they vote for the same party at the national level also and the local level. If they're opposed to them, they're opposed to them at the state and national level. So when the election is separated, the leader of the national party at the national level does not make an impact. Mallikarjuna Kharge. But in Lok Sabha election, that election is separated. If Modi is seen as the champion of the BJP and the underclass because he came from backward classes, I think Congress effort to show that they have another a person, a towering leader, leader of stature from the Dalit background, and therefore we can match. Then probably it may have some impact. I do not know; it's too early to say. But in the Telangana Assembly election, it's unlikely that the president of the Congress will have an impact.
Okay. थैंक यू सो मच डॉक्टर साहब फॉर टॉकिंग टू अस. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका से बात करने के लिए. मैं आपसे एक दो बार आपको और तकलीफ दूंगा. आई विल बॉदर यू वंस और ट्वाइस बिकॉज टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस पॉलिटिक्स. देश को आज जब हम सब लोग एक दूसरे को इतना जानते हैं तो देश को भी ये समझना चाहिए. आज हमारे लिए जरूरी है कि हम मिजोरम की बात करें, आज हमारे लिए जरूरी है कि हम मणिपुर की बात करें, और हमारे लिए जरूरी है कि हम जम्मू कश्मीर की भी बात करें. थैंक यू सो मच डॉक्टर साहब फॉर ज्वाइनिंग विद अस. थैंक यू.